So a lifelong Democrat becomes a Republican. What would make a lifelong Democrat become a Republican? I haven't heard of any Republicans becoming Democrats, but we have Georgia State Rep or former Georgia State Rep Vernon Jones, who was a lifelong Democrat, uh, decided to join the Republican Party. Why would he do that? I think it's best we hear from the horse's mouth. So here's a bit of former State Representative Jones explaining why he left the Democratic Party and joined the Republican Party.
He claims that even after last week's violence on Capitol Hill that led to at least 5 deaths, it is Democrats who are sowing division and hate. Vernon Jones joins me now from Atlanta. He served in the State House from 1993 to 2001 and again from 2017 until just yesterday. He's the founder of WakingUpAmerica.us. Representative Jones, thank you so much for joining us. You have been an outspoken critic of the Democratic Party dating back as far as your loss in the 2008 Senate primaries. Your support for Republicans is certainly not new. You voted for President George Bush, and you spoke at the Republican National Convention after you endorsed President Trump in April of last year. So I'm just curious as to the timing of your decision coming just after the violence on Capitol Hill. Why did you decide now was the time to leave the Democratic Party?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And secondly, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. And ironically, the bigotry in the Democratic Party is at display because when Governor Zell Miller, who was a United States Senator, Democrat both times, when he supported President George W. Bush and spoke at the Republican National Convention, the Democrats were hashtag crickets. Why? Because they don't want independent African Americans to be able to vote independently. They want to keep them on their plantation. And I'm just not a part of that plantation. Secondly, your previous guest was intellectually dishonest. I was there at the rally that was hosted by private individuals, citizens, Americans, and patriots. And this president did not at any time say anything to encourage anybody to go as a mob and attack the United States Congress. There's zero tolerance for any type of that behavior. You cannot explain that. But ironically, we see right now how this past summer and spring, all of those violent attacks by Black Lives Matter and Antifa, where people were killed to the tune of about 26, I believe, including a 1-year-old baby child in a stroller in New York, an 8-year-old baby daughter in Atlanta. Black businesses burned, businesses period burned, police officers assaulted. Not a single time did anyone call them domestic terrorists. Joe Biden or no one else. Why? Because they wanted them to do that to help them win the presidency. So the Democrats has a lot of hypocrisy going on right now. And they stormed, by the way, and you know this too, federal courthouses, police stations, police cars burned. All of that happened by Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and still Joe Biden has not called them terrorist organizations. Now,
Representative Jones, just to be fair, Representative Jones, just to be fair, though, President-elect Biden did condemn the violence during the BLM movements. I reported on it. We heard him say it. He did condemn the violence. I just want to
that's incorrect.
Put that
Maybe
aside.
He condemned the violence, but he did not say Black Lives Matter. You guys are terrorists. You've killed people. You've destroyed federal property and private property. He said Antifa was an idea. Antifa is not an idea. Ask me. I was subjected to the attacks of Antifa and Black Lives Matter when I left the United States, when I left the Capitol, I should say the White House, after the president accepted his nomination from the Republican National Convention. I didn't hear from anyone to call me to ask me about my experience, the horrific experience. Well,
if you're not familiar with what he's talking about right now, I'm going to add a clip of that to the end of this video. I think it's important that you see that. He's not exaggerating this at all. And in reference to what he said about Biden, if you notice with Trump, he disavowed, it must have been 1,000 times he had to use the word disavow, disavow, disavow.
My life was at stake. I felt my life at jeopardy. So he may have condemned violence, but he did not call them out by name, and he should have. And where was Congress, Nancy Pelosi? Why didn't they pass a resolution?
And along with that, they wanted them to be specific in condemning certain things, right? But if you notice, like Biden, like he said, he never got specific about it. He just said the violence was bad, but he never disavowed anyone. He never said anything negative about these organizations. I mean, Black Lives Matter could literally took down a skyscraper, and I don't think Joe Biden would have disavowed Black Lives Matter. He would have just said, or the violence perpetrated by BLM, he would have just said, violence is horrible. I don't support violence. But if you notice, he will never specifically condemn any one person or any one group. And I believe that's strategic, but let's continue.
Urging Black Lives Matter and Antifa to stop their violence. As a matter of fact, if you look at some of their quotes, including Nancy Pelosi, she said, well, people do what they want to do. She also, I should say, Maxine Waters, had encouraged people to find them in restaurants, public places, and to attack people, and on and on. So let's be honest here, and let's be clear. There's no room for violence, but there is no room, there's not enough room for Americans who feel like they have not been heard, who want to exercise their freedom of speech and to march on their Congress, go to the people's house in a peaceful way, because thousands were not a part of it.
Representative,
let's be clear about that.
Representative,
so it's just double
but let's be
standards.
fair.
It's just being intellectually dishonest.
Well, but let's be fair. I mean, the Stop the Steal, conspiracy certainly had a role in working up this mob. You spoke at Wednesday's rally ahead of the riots. Do you feel any personal responsibility for what happened on Wednesday? Actually,
Stop the Steal did not encourage any violence. Antifa encouraged violence. There have been a number of marches in Washington where hotels were flooded with Antifa, people coming out in Black lives, turning over dinner tables, running through the lobby.
Representative Jones, I'm sorry, I have to correct you there. There is absolutely no evidence that
intellectually dishonest.
Yeah, see, so she wants to cut him off because she's not getting what she wants to get out of it. She's not hearing it. I applaud him for not being manhandled in the interview, not allowing himself to be manhandled, pigeonholed, or manipulated, backed into a corner. He said his piece, and he spoke facts. I don't think there's any way to negatively spin what's going on and why he left the Democratic Party and moving over to the Republican Party. I agree with everything that he said, and I commend him. I'm also proud of him for being able to tie that decision directly to current events, recent events, and ideological differences. I love the way he said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. That's saying something. That puts a lot of things into perspective. Basically, he's saying his position didn't change all that much. It's that the party went in a different direction, and he couldn't allow himself to be part of that anymore. So, Mr. Vernon Jones, I salute you, sir. Never met him before in my life, never met you before in my life, but I salute you, sir. Let's take a look at the clip where he talks about where he was harassed upon leaving the White House. I'll leave you with that.
Are you a Black Trump supporter? Man. Are you a Trump supporter? Listen.
He's a congressman. Are you a Black Trump supporter?
Yes, he is. He's in Congress. He speaks not in Congress.
What is your position?
He's been a politician.
What is your position?
Fuck this dude.
What is your position?
Then fuck this dude. In Congress.
Yes. All right, move it. Back up. Move back. Move back.
Move back.
Move back.
Your bitch ass.
Move back.
What's up? Hit me with the bucket. I want you.
Move back.
Fucking disgrace.
Move back.
Shame.
Move back. Hey, right here, Brad. Right here.
What's up? What?
Ryan, right there.
Oh, you talking about orders like you doing something. It's the order of
Where's
She was a black woman too. She was a black woman too. They go to the left. They go to the left, y'all. They go to the black woman too. Look, her name was Breonna Taylor. Her name was Breonna Taylor.
Can I ask you a few questions? I just want to get my guests in the hotel. I don't want to get trouble. I just want to get my guests in the hotel.
You spoke at the order. I want you to speak.
She was a black woman too. She was a black woman too. Can you say her name? Say her name. Say her name. Say her name. Say her name. Say his name. Breonna Taylor.
Excuse us. Let the man walk.
It's Breonna Taylor. Can you say her name?
Let the people walk.
Let us live. Let us live.
He's not doing anything.
He didn't do nothing at all.
I don't walk. Okay? He's not. He didn't do anything.
Fuck that shit.
Thank you for apologizing.
We're escorting you to the destination. Okay, so you got to go down. Who do you protect? Who do you protect?
She got a blood backyard. In my backyard. What are you doing for us?
You